So let me start by naming something that almost everyone carries, but few people say out loud. There are things that you've known for a long time that you haven't said. And not because you're dishonest or manipulative, but because somewhere along the way, honesty, being honest, got coupled for you with feeling you'll be harmed. So when something needs to be said, a boundary, a truth for yourself, a limit, something you want to change, your body tightens before words even form. And you can feel calculation begin to start. Will this hurt them? Will this damage the relationship? Will I be seen as unkind or selfish? Or in my case, will I be seen as too much? You're not alone. Hi, I'm Leezá Steinorf, and I work with people who care deeply about integrity and not just about being honest, but being humane while they're honest. And today we're going to talk about how to say hard things without feeling like you're hurting someone, without abandoning them, or turning into someone that you don't recognize. So if you're new here, this channel is about grounded truth and about your finding and feeling and living from your internal authority and communication that does not require self-betrayal. So let's walk into this and through this with each other. So most people think that honesty is what causes rupture in relationships. It's not. What breaks relationships is avoidance or honesty with judgment. Also, what breaks it is resentment, silence, carrying things alone for too long and feeling like the other person should have known, or letting your truth fester instead of actually giving it space to breathe. So, the hard thing isn't the problem. The state that you're in when you say it, that's the challenge. And when your truth comes out tangled up in fear or anger or defensiveness or even shame, then it sounds like an attack, even if the content is reasonable. But when it comes from your center with clarity and steadiness, something else happens. It doesn't explode the relationship. It often becomes a turning point. Now, I do want to have a caveat. Some people will turn away. There's no way to avoid that. But the highest chance that you have of healing relationships and keeping them strong and steady is through honesty. And today I want to show you how to speak hard truths without performing and without being theatrical, any kind of big emotional shows, and without losing your own humanity in the process. All right? So we're going to slow it down, go step by step. Saying hard things isn't difficult because of the words, clearly, right? You've said all the words in a message many times in your lifetime. It's difficult because of the meaning you learned to attach to the honesty. And I'm going to say it again. If you go back and do my clips on non-judgment, that's the foundation that you're going to share from your heart in an honest way without making anybody wrong, not the person you're talking to and not yourself. So for many people, honesty got linked to being unkind, being judgmental, creating conflict, disappointing someone, being selfish or disloyal to the other person. And it often means or has meant that we're going to lose connection. So even now, as an adult, your nervous system that has been trained in that, it carries this belief of if I say something important, I'm going to lose something. There's a threat here. Okay? And that belief didn't come from logic, it came from experience. And here's the clarity. Most people never pause long enough to really take in. If a relationship cannot tolerate each person's truth, it is not made safer by silence at all. It already has a weakness in the foundation, and that can be addressed. So silence doesn't protect connection. It actually just delays the cost that there is, and it usually increases it. And recognizing that is the first step to release, right? Is that avoidance and silence is not going to resolve and bring you all forward. So now we're going to look at separating your own truth and what you're going to share, where you're standing, from an outcome, right? We're going to orient because this is where people get tangled. Your truth and the outcome are not the same thing. You have a responsibility to what is true for you, to where you stand. The outcome of how that lands belongs to the relationship and to the other person, to the two of you together. But when they get fused, then it can feel terrifying, to be honest, right? So orientation sounds something like this internally. I'm responsible for saying this clearly and respectfully. I am not responsible for how it lands. Whew. That is so simple and so challenging. I'm going to say it again. I'm responsible for how I say this clearly and respectfully, but I am not responsible for how it lands with the other person. And that doesn't make you cold, it makes you accurate and fair. And accuracy is actually what allows honesty. It allows it to be clean and not cruel. And then you also, then when you are able to stand in that place, then you have choice. And this is where people often abandon themselves, right? They might even say their truth. And then where do they go from there? So this is the moment where people betray themselves, right? They leave themselves. Right before they speak, they start to manage their tone, the reaction, how comfortable they are, timing. Is there going to be emotional default? Like they start doing this dance around it. And without realizing it, then they're what's true for them, what they want to say, it gets so softened that it's bent or it ceases to exist. It doesn't even look like what they wanted to say. And that's patterning. We've all done that. So this is the choice point. And you're not choosing between honesty and kindness, but you're making a choice for self-presence instead of self-abandonment. You're choosing yourself and staying with yourself in that moment, even when you get uncomfortable, is what allows your truth to stay intact. Staying with yourself without accusing others, without blaming, without shaming yourself, and speaking what is true for you. That's what gives you your internal strength and your agency. And from that place, you can take aligned action. You can say the hard thing. So if we get practical, I'm going to give you some steps. First, start from your center, not from fear. So before you speak, check in. Is what I'm saying coming from clarity? Or is it built up? And if it's built up, take a breath, come back another time. Right? Really come into it where you can breathe, take a pause, and then continue. And have feel the ground beneath you when you start. That determines the entire tone. Okay, next. Lead with context, not accusation. Okay, so I'm sure you know this yourself. When people start with you always, or you never, or I'm sick of, right? You can forget it. It's not going to go anywhere. The other person's going to already be like this. So those don't invite conversation, obviously, right? They just trigger defensiveness. So instead of that, try something steadier. There's something important I want to talk about. I care about our connection, which is why I want to be honest with you. What I want to share is not about blame. It's about clarity. I would like to be clear. So can you hear how that lands differently, or it can land differently? You can only do so much about how it lands. You can only do your part. So that framing matters more than you can imagine because it sets the stage for how people can hear. All right. Third thing is to be direct, but not dramatic. Just stay grounded. So direct sounds like, I need more reliability, or I feel dismissed when plans change and there's no communication, or this dynamic doesn't work for me anymore. Drama sounds like you clearly don't care, or I guess I don't matter, right? You're infusing the other person with distorted beliefs. You don't know if that's true or not, and they don't even have a place in this conversation. So when you get dramatic and judgmental, it's going to activate their shame and defensiveness. But when you stay grounded and you're direct, that invites understanding from the other person because they have nothing to defend. Okay. Fourth, use short, clean sentences. I had to really work on that. And then stay human. Okay, it doesn't have to be long and drawn out. Long explanations often come from anxiety, not from clarity. So instead of spiraling, when this happens, I feel dismissed. I don't want to continue like that. That's it. Clean, short, grounded, and then you pause and you see what happens. Okay. Fifth, name what you want, not just what you don't want. And most folks lose that because we're so clear on, I don't want that, I don't want that. When I say, what do you want? People are often like, huh, I've never really thought about that. So when you're speaking with someone about something that's important to you, they need direction, not just the critique part. They need to know, I want us to be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. Or I want us to have a different pattern here. And then that gives the relationship something to move toward. If you've listened to any of my content, I speak a lot about moving toward things instead of from away from what we don't want. Okay. Six is hold the line without getting hostile. And you can be compassionate and also firm. It's not an either or. They can exist at the same time. Right? So somebody is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I disagree. I don't see it that way. You can respond, I hear how you feel, and this still doesn't work for me. Or I care about you and I'm not willing to continue this. Okay. You don't have to get aggressive and you don't have to shrink. You can hear them and stay with yourself. And I want to emphasize that what I'm sharing is not an easy fix. These are not the one, two, threes, fix whatever. That's not how my work has really had an impact in the world. It's not how I've been able to change so many ingrained patterns in myself. This is really working from the ground up. Okay? It's powerful and it takes practice. And seventh is to allow for their reaction. And this is the part that almost no one teaches. You don't need immediate agreement. You don't need them to feel comfortable. And you don't have to have a resolution right then and there. And that, I know that was hard for me because I felt such an urgency. If we don't fix it now, something bad's going to happen. Your nervous system can learn that the other person gets to have their process. And it might take a moment or need some time. Your job is to stay grounded and not manage their emotions and not insist on an outcome. Okay? All right. So I've spoken a lot about excellence in the past, and I want to share here that excellence looks like coming from your highest and best first for yourself and then for the other. It's when you stop treating your truth like it's a weapon. It's not. It's your truth. It's your stance. It's your perspective. And it's totally valid, as is theirs. So you don't have to apologize for your clarity. And you also don't have to give up yourself in trying to avoid tension. You don't have to avoid tension. You don't have to collapse or hide when someone else is uncomfortable. You can learn to sit with that. And you don't attack in order to avoid somebody else being vulnerable. You don't have to do that. You can stay steady, even if the room wobbles. And I just want to put in a caveat in here. I'm talking about healthy, mostly healthy adult relationships. If you are in an abusive relationship, this content is not what I'm talking about. Okay, you need something completely different, and please get help and stay safe. I'm talking about when you are in relationships that aren't functioning, or you have something to share in relationships that are functioning. So when you do that, when you don't apologize, when you don't collapse or hide and don't attack, something starts to shift with time. It's amazing. People begin to trust you. And not because you're easy or you're playing nice, but because you're real and they can rely on that. And that's leadership if you do this in a professional realm. And it's basic and foundational if you're doing it in relationships. In work or in life, either one, it builds trust. So I'm going to offer you in closing a mini practice, a one-line truth for yourself. Before saying the hard thing, reduce it down to one sentence. Yeah, and I'm not saying you have to stick to that sentence, but it's super helpful. If I could say this in 10 words or fewer, what is my truth? I'll give you some examples, okay? I need more consistency. This doesn't work for me. I need space. I want more honesty between us. I'd like to not be interrupted when we speak often. Say that sentence first to yourself and see if it's right. And when you get it right, then you can start that way when you're at that point. And then let the rest follow, but only if you need to. Let them react. Listen to what they have to say. Listen to what they have to say. So, saying hard things, it does not make you unkind. If you can say it from a groundedness in the way I've just walked it through with you, it makes you trustworthy because people know they can rely on you, that you're telling your truth. And when you learn to speak honestly that way, without attacking someone and without disappearing, then you can start facing things front on too. People know that they can share their truths with you. And man, that gives you a backbone, that gives you a strength and a standing in life that's really so valuable. And if you want support strengthening this, your communication, your boundaries, your self-trust, keep practicing. As I said, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And if you want more support beyond yourself, please reach out through my website. I'd be honored to support you. If this has been useful to you, go ahead and subscribe, like the video, and do share it with others. We're building a community here. Thank you. Be well.